Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much for making the time today. Let me just get started with the IMF discussions. How well on track is Pakistan in order to complete the next review?
Well, thank you for having me. We find ourselves in convergence with the end result and objectives set by IMF, the way they are looking at Pakistan's economy, the way they are being suggestive of the solutions. The good news is that the caretaker current government, they're already committed, and out of conviction they have already set that agenda. For instance, going and pursuing the path of privatization of the state-owned agencies, expanding our tax network, increasing tax to GDP ratio, things like that. So we are building more confidence, and we are building more open communication channel with the fund.
Part of those negotiations, of course, were increased power tariffs. Were you able to get some relief on that?
Power tariffs relief is a small aspect of a huge problem. We are stuck with our IPPs, contractual issues, which are not that beneficial for the whole power sector. And it is affecting our consumption, our domestic consumption, our industrial consumption. So it's more of a complicated issue rather than just linked with the price hike or giving relief on that account. What IMF's approach is, and I primarily in a way agree with it, that they are not against any targeted subsidy, and which should be to a class which is economically disadvantaged, rather than just giving a blanket sort of subsidy to all sections of society. So we are trying to avoid that and rationalize our old tariff policy.
When could we see some changes? Because in the meantime, you do have protests across the country.
Well, that is true. We did face some protest, particularly in the month of August. That was primarily for the reason that the 2 months earlier to August, which is June and July, the additional tariff was not calculated in those bills, and it was brought in as a single bill into the month of August. So that was one of the reasons it came as a shock to the people. But having said this, what we are suggesting over here is that we are trying to address the bigger issues. We are trying to rationalize the whole power sector. We are trying to privatize the transmission companies, we are trying to increase our tax network so that we are not dependent on the indirect taxes which are being clubbed in all these bills of electricity. So it's wholesome issues which we are being faced, and we are trying to resolve them accordingly.
Until you get to that point, do you expect more unrest in the country, and how will you handle that?
Well, my own anticipation is that as we are approaching the months in the winter, our electricity bills would decrease significantly for the reason that you do not require air conditioning of your homes and so on and so forth. So on the consumption side, the winter months are usually a good news for the government. So I do not anticipate that kind of a huge social unrest due to the price hike of electricity.
The IMF request for privatization was not necessarily an immediate demand, so why do that now? And what's actually on the table for sale?
I don't think so. It is primarily on the request of IMF. Our own approach toward the state-owned entities is that we have realized this, and I think so it's across the board with the different political parties, that state has got no business to do business. So that laissez-faire approach towards the economic intervention is probably guiding everyone across the board in Pakistan. And in that context, we are trying initially to privatize our transmission bodies. And the transmission bodies, along with the generating units, they are also on the card. But This would help us, one, to get more investment in the infrastructure of the transmission, where there is a huge theft on the account of electricity. There is a huge loss. People don't pay. There are administrative issues related to that. So once the private parties enter into the contract, we expect that they would be able to give relatively better services, and it would carry some economic and business sense too.
Do you expect some sales in the next few months within your tenure?
I don't want to commit something which would haunt me later on, but yes, I'm sanguine.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us an idea of which companies we're thinking of, or sectors?
Yes, the sector I'm specifically hinting about is the power sector, and those discos, which we call them, the transmission bodies and throughout the country. We are expecting that few of them would be privatized in a couple of months.
You've been cracking down against multiple mafias, whether it's power theft, smuggling, illegal currency trade. Why tackle these multiple issues at once now?
I think so. There was a deep realization that we have got some serious challenges as far as our governance is concerned. It's not that our economy is that small that we would be ignored by either region or the global players. It was the mismanagement part which brought us to the situation where we are right now. And that mismanagement was due to poor governance, ill governance, bad governance. There are plethora of shades revolving around this question of governance, which includes the presence of all these cartels or mafias, whether they are in the illegal trade of currency or illegal trade of oil and petrol and diesel, electricity theft, so on and so on, hoarding of edible items. So it is all an area where administrative interventions were required on the part of the federal government, state governments, and local governments to at least undo the artificial bubble of inflation, for example, or the artificial value of the currency, which was primarily driven by the demand in the illegal trade of the currency. So it was the illegal trade which created a demand which affected our bank rates, and that would affect our circular terms. So it was a vicious cycle from which you couldn't come out until unless you had, or the government had, some firm interventions.
The rupee has in fact strengthened from record lows after you started cracking down on the illegal trade of the dollar. So how much stronger do you think it can get?
I don't want to enter into the business of speculation because that's not my job. Whether it comes to whatever figure it would be.
Is there a level that you're thinking of? Because I believe one minister even talked about 250 rupees.
I am not sure who has given that figure, but as far as I'm concerned, or my government or cabinet is concerned, we are not interested in the business of management of currency rates. It's for the free market. Let them determine that, and let the market forces answer this question rather than government official.
But you are dealing with the repercussions of having a record weak rupee. What are some of the challenges that you're facing, and how do you plan to handle them?
Well, our role and our job is that we allow the legal activity within that framework, be it of the currency trade or other regulatory activities related to economics and trade, and that's what exactly we are doing. We are not in the business of flooding, let's say, the open market with our own reserves and trying to manage an artificial value of rupee against the dollar. So that is not what we are looking for. That's not what we're going to do. What we are doing here is just trying to bring everything under regulations and according to the laws of the land, and we'll try to enforce them religiously.
China is your biggest lender. What conversations are you having on debt relief?
Well, we are having very positive and constructive engagement with the China in economic terms, not just in our debts, or that there is an overall economic perspective towards the region and specifically towards Pakistan. And the Chinese side is realistically looking at Pakistan, that what sort of business model in economic sense would it come, and where the Chinese intervention would be helpful for our economic health. So we are having a very broad-based conversation. It's not just specific to the debt.
You mentioned negotiating some power plant contracts. Do those involve China?
I will not comment on the specific commercial deals. There are many. But what we are trying to do here is that wherever there is a possibility under the clauses of the contracts, we'll try to renegotiate it, which is favorable more to the people of Pakistan.
You also mentioned $50 billion of investments from Saudi Arabia and the UAE. How soon could we see those funds?
I would be bad with the timelines. All I can give you or divulge that there is a serious initiative on the part of GCC countries led by Saudi Arabia and UAE and the rest, that they want to invest in multiple sectors in Pakistan. And $50 billion is just one figure which I did mention, but it does not have a kind of a limit that it has limited itself to that.
So they are
coming up with open mind, and with an open mind, if they see more business opportunity, and if there is a more to offer from our side, it probably could cross that figure as well.
Pakistan's delegation last year came to the UN General Assembly facing tragic floods. How much of the $10 billion in commitments from the global community have you actually received?
We are pursuing that all those pledges should be converted into tangible finances. If I have to give a figure, probably 1/10. There is a lot which needs to be done from our side also. We are trying to conceive projects related to which would be mitigation of this climate disaster which happened in two provinces, particularly of Sindh and Balochistan. We are working with all our partners, with all the friends of Pakistan who have stood in this testing times with us, which is across the globe, from US to China, everywhere, anyone. They have supported us in this disaster situation. So we are trying to convert that into tangible financing.
How important is it to get that financing, especially since we have the weather phenomenon of El Nino this year?
It's very important. It's very important, but at the same time, I'm not saying that it would resolve all our issues as far as climate change is concerned or our other economic woes. But yes, it would be a reasonable intervention where it could at least play some role in rebuilding and reconstructing the lives which has already been devastated by these floods.
National elections now expected in January. Recently, the Election Commission, though, has questioned the neutrality of your caretaker government. How do you respond to that?
Well, I won't say that they have doubted the neutrality of our caretaker government, but yes, they did write a letter which carried some advisory portion and advising us on different aspects of our mandate and governance. But as far as the working relationship is concerned with the Election Commission of Pakistan, it's quite smooth, and there is no stress and strain in terms of day-to-day activities or governance issues.
Have you made any changes given the recommendation?
They were advisory in nature. They were not a recommendation which needed a mandatory response of implementation. So we have contemplated those advices in the good faith, We are trying to learn from it. We are trying to benefit from it. So far, we do not see that there is a need of any tangible arrangement or rearrangement in the governance structure to do that.
Do you expect former Prime Minister Imran Khan to be part of the upcoming elections?
I think so. He's already part of the upcoming elections. I don't see why a query is even raised in that context. His party is registered with the Election Commission of Pakistan. It's a legitimate political body, along with many others.
He has faced many challenges in the legal system.
Well, that is for the legal system and the judicial process to respond to, and let that path be pursued in a way which is being offered by the Constitution of Pakistan, but we have a lawfare of our own, and that is not for us as a government or as an individual to intervene like any other democracy, though we are a transitional one, but we are trying to aspire to become a settled one.